What's up, folks? Welcome to my channel. Just wanted to pop in here really quick before we start the video and ask you to please subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. That's what feeds the algorithm monster and keeps this thing going. If you're interested in the audio versions of the podcast, of course, we are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all those good places. We sell our t-shirts and stuff like that I wear during the show on justworkco.com. You can find me on all the social platforms pretty much at I am Dave Hurt, and you can follow the podcast Instagram at the Free Mind Podcast. All right, that's enough. I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I appreciate you. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Free Mind Podcast. I am your host, Dave Hurt, and today we have a special guest. I'm stoked to have Steve Orozco joining me. What's up, brother?
Hey, man, how are we doing today?
Good, man, good. So I'm going to attempt an intro here, and I want you to add something I leave out because this man has done a lot of stuff. Yeah. So professional athlete, MMA, Wall Street guy, business owner, entrepreneur, in the in an MMA related industry, and I want to talk about that. And then also now, most recently, running for political office.
Yes.
Do you sleep?
No. It's funny because it was so hilarious. Yesterday, for example, I got up at 3:30.
Oh my God.
I'm going through all my DMs, replying to people, and I have people like, yo, why are you up at 3:30 in the morning? You know, today I was up at 4:30. I'm at that point now, like if I wake up in the middle of the night, like we all do, my brain starts firing. And if it starts firing even a little bit, it's game over.
Dude, that happened to me. So I'm one of those guys that I cannot go to bed early. I'm always up until midnight or later. My wife is the exact opposite. She's so good about her sleep and she gets to bed and you know, but she gets up early. So I'll crash at like midnight, 1 a.m., and I work for myself, so I kind of make my schedule, but it inevitably, dude, she's up at like 5 o'clock. If I wake up just for a second, like that's it, I'm up. And so that's what I've been battling against. And then, you know, I'm tiptoeing around trying not to wake up my daughter and stuff. But
I do the same thing.
Man, all right. So you've done a lot of things. You're clearly very fitness minded guy. You're in ridiculous shape, and I think that's how I started following you on Instagram back when I was doing more of my fitness coaching business. And it seems like a lot of us kind of from that background that are fitness minded and entrepreneurial who own businesses have kind of gravitated towards getting more involved politically, I think, as a result of all the bullshit that's happening.
I think so too.
Yeah, man. It's been this interesting phenomenon, but I wanted to kick it over to you and just kind of tell me what brought you to this point where you felt like you needed to run for political office. First off, I'm stoked you are because we need more guys like you. But what was the impetus for that?
You know, I ran for office last year.
Oh, okay.
And this was like literally a last minute thing. I was asked maybe 2 months before the election, and I had just had Achilles surgery. I'm on a knee scooter. Like I couldn't really campaign. And it was only for the alderman position, which is basically like you're the mayor of your neighborhood.
Right.
You know,
right.
So I'm in New Haven. There's about 30 wards or 32 wards. Each ward has a representative. And each one of those representatives comes together, all 30 of them. They go downtown and they vote on the legislation put forth by the mayor.
Got it.
Every single alderman is a Democrat. I'm in a very heavy Democratic city.
Wow.
And I ran against someone who was going into his 7th term. He's also a neighborhood guy. I only lost by 200 votes. So I was like really understanding that a lot of people do want change.
Yeah.
And while I was there, the chairman of the RNC here in Connecticut, his name is Ben Proto, actually came to the voting poll that I was at.
Right.
And he said, listen, win or lose, we should talk if you want to do something higher than this. So after it was over, I lost. A couple of months passed by. He said, hey, let's grab lunch. We started talking. And he asked me if I'd be willing to run for Senate or for House of Rep. And the Senate position really struck it got my juices flowing because of how much of an uphill battle it was here or is here. And I'm a David versus Goliath kind of guy. Like
Yeah.
if something is too easy, it doesn't really interest me. And with something that I know is going to be a battle that I'm not supposed to win, that I get to show up every day and fight, it gets my juices flowing. And so I did my research when they asked me, and I noticed the guy that I'm running against. So for those who are listening, I'm running for Senate of the District 11, which is New Haven and Hampden. We're probably the second most influential district in the state of Connecticut because New Haven is such a major hub here. Hartford is the capital. New Haven is probably number 2.
Yeah.
It's our city is really controlled by Yale. You can imagine Yale being as liberal as it is.
Oh boy, yeah.
What I'm dealing with.
Mm-hmm. The Halloween costume debacle. I remember all of that being in the press over at Yale. All that stuff.
Absolutely. And as I'm doing my research, the one thing that really got me motivated was the incumbents. His name is Martin Looney. He's 73 years old. He was elected into his seat in 1993. He's going into his 16th term.
Jesus.
So I'm just like, how is it that I'm in a city where crime keeps on going up, test scores keep on going down, tax reform continues to fail, and these people are still voting this guy in year after year? So I do more research. He's also the Senate president pro temp of Connecticut. So he has a lot of power here. And I was like, oh man, this is the guy I want to go against. And I check all the boxes, and I say this in the most humble way. I'm super competitive. My father's from Trinidad. My mother actually went to Yale. So I'm half Black, I'm half white. I'm a business owner, all about family. I'm very educated. I have an MBA and an MS. So I think that I resonate and relate to everyone. Like I'm the one who's actually to go into this inner city and mentor kids.
Yeah.
These Democrats aren't doing that. They just want to like hold everybody down. And for me with politics, the reason why I became so heavy in it, like you were talking about, was I was a lifelong Democrat, like a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Guilty.
I voted based on ideals. So first time I voted was Obama. I voted for, this is me, not a sophisticated voter. I voted for Obama simply because he was Black, because he related to me. Oh, he's going to be motivated, inspiring to all the kids in the inner city to have a victor mentality and do better. Nothing changed. Then fast forward Hillary versus Trump. I voted for Hillary. Why? I have a 16-year-old daughter. She would be an amazing inspiration and role model to all the little girls out there. Obviously, we know she's not a good person. So then I voted. Then fast forward the next election, I started being more vocal and being pro-Trump. I loved how much he loved the country. Mm-hmm. Now, I'll preface this with, I do think he is a narcissist.
100%.
But I also think that a narcissist like him, you also sometimes need an office to deal with other tyrants globally and take no shit. Yeah. He won't bow down or cower to anyone. I think that's important. So the second I was pro-Trump in that last election, all the hate DMs that I got from the tolerant left, I'm racist, I'm a white supremacist, I'm a coon, I'm an Uncle Tom, I'm a sellout. That's when I started getting pissed and saying, I will never vote Dem again, because why would you even think about that? Why would you think of me like that? Because I want to elevate minorities to higher places. I don't want to keep them down on the welfare state with this victim mentality. Yeah. But I'm the sellout for wanting to do that.
Man, if I had $1 for every time I hear a similar story, I mean, it's insane, brother. Like I voted for Obama twice. I'm married to a person of color. And so we were all, full scale, like first Black president, like this is amazing. Same deal, dude. We drove from Raleigh, North Carolina, where we were going to school, up to DC like overnight on a whim to see his inauguration, and stood in the cold, like it was, we were that kind of, we bought into it all, man. And then kind of the same deal, just like the policies were never there, like nothing was ever delivered on. And then what really did it for me was, honestly, this go around with COVID, I started more and more waking up. So a big part of it was when I got out of college, worked in corporate America for quite a few years, and then started my first company. Yeah. That, when you really start to see, okay, how much I'm paying into taxes, what are you doing with these tax dollars? Like all of that stuff, man. So that got the wheels kind of rolling for me. But then when I saw how everybody reacted to Trump and took what he said out of context and all these different things, dude. And then when COVID hit, my background is in the sciences. I have an MS, but it's in biochemistry. So I didn't do any business school or anything, but I talked about masks like in the very beginning because I was putting out fitness content. People were like, dude, why aren't you wearing a mask in the gym? Because this gym here where my studio is, we kept it open the whole time. We never closed. We didn't get pressed because we happened to be in a red state and nobody cared. So
yeah, absolutely.
but it's all good. We stayed open and I was putting out videos. People were like, why aren't you wearing a mask? Hitting me in my DMs constantly, tons of hate, like you can probably relate to. And absolutely. I was like, okay, I'm not going to reply to all these DMs, but here's what I'll do. I'll put out a video where I describe the underlying science and why I'm not wearing a mask in the gym. And that'll solve all the problems. I'll help people. I'll reference some papers they can check out. This is going to be great. Dude, I got annihilated. People were like, I lost clients that I was coaching on nutrition. Friends blocked me, all this stuff for literally outlining the science why a mask isn't effective. And that's when it really struck me. I was like, oh, these people are sick in the head. Like they are totally programmed and this is scary stuff. And then the rest is history. So I always like hearing people's kind of red pill stories like that, man. But
yeah. And the irony of that is those same people that scream that are now not wearing masks anymore.
Of course.
The government told them mandates are over. So why are they not wearing a mask now?
Steve, didn't you know that the science changed? The science changed, aka science. Midterms. That's the science.
Midterms.
Yeah, bro.
You know, people just brainwashed. Like even with this whole war thing that's going on, I have not weighed in. I am not going to weigh in. I haven't even watched the news once because there's not a single person in this country that understands truly what's going on over there. Nobody. I don't care. Unless you get on a plane and go there, you should probably shut up.
Yeah, like who is it? Sean Penn. He's over there. I saw I guess they were shooting a movie or something, but apparently he walked into the Ukrainian official federal building where they were meeting about the conflict and sat in the front row, I guess, because he's like, I'm Sean Penn, I can do what I want. But there was all these pictures of it, but that's the liberal logic. But yeah, I agree. And everybody wants to put out a hot take and act like they know what they're talking about. I stay in my lane, just like you, man. I'm trying to educate myself on everything because this stuff goes back way, way, way deeper than people
way too many layers.
Yeah, bro. Like NATO and us breaking our promises to Russia since 20 years ago, and just us helping Ukraine have a coup back in 2014, and then people call Ukraine a democracy, but it turns out they had their opponent news channels completely silenced and taken off, this current administration. There's all these different layers of stuff. Now, granted, my sympathies and empathies are 100% with the Ukrainian citizens that are dealing with this crap. That's completely, I'm on board with that. But the rest of it, talking about, well, Ukraine should do this, Russia shouldn't do that. It's like you said, bro, we're not there. And we as Americans, I think, have lost focus on America. And we need to look back at our own house before we start worrying about the guy down the street.
Absolutely. I mean, even the American flag is starting to look like it's inherently racist.
By
a lot of people. And I don't understand,
it's insane.
when did it happen that people thought the flag was a symbol of racism? And that's just crazy to me.
It's been a process, man. I think certainly the media obviously is behind it in a big way, but ultimately, if you can convince people that America was built on a bedrock of racism, then it's pretty easy to go the next step and convince people that America is racist systemically. And then, of course, what represents the country, the flag. So now all of a sudden, if you see a dude wearing an American flag, all of a sudden he's a racist. And then if it's a dude who looks like me, forget about it. Forget about it. If they'll call you a white supremacist, what do you think they think about me, man?
Absolutely.
It's wild.
Bizarre. It's so bizarre.
So basically with running for office, I didn't realize you had started last year. but this year you're taking on, I guess, kind of the big fish, the higher level role. And look, any guy that leaves the cushiness of Wall Street to fight in a cage, I believe you when you say you like taking on the big challenges. So,
Absolutely. I'm a very passion driven person. I think, and some people are just wired like that. Some people are wired to be worker bees.
Yep.
And just go to work and do their thing. And they're the fabric of our country. But then there's other people, like I won't say myself, who I want to be out of my comfort zone. I'm always going after something bigger. I'm not satisfied. And if I get there and I get the seat, I'm going on to the next one and the next one so I can get to the top. I just can't help myself. My wife always says it drives her crazy.
Dude.
Because I just have such big aspirations. But I thrive in chaos. I'm that individual. I deal with stress very well. Obviously, I get stressed. I just don't wear it on my sleeve.
Right.
It's like any normal person.
So talk a little bit about your background as a fighter, and just it's fascinating to me. So I guess first off, let me ask a specific question. So you're a type of guy who clearly takes on big challenges, who likes getting after it every day. I'm always curious when I talk to people who have that kind of mindset, who I identify with that as well. That's the kind of person I am. And for me, it was growing up with, I'll just put it bluntly, awful parents who were abusive and did drugs and all this stuff. And so I was always having to fight, and it kind of developed in me that way. But I'm always fascinated by like what people attribute their drive to. Is it just how you are innately, always have been, or was there something in your life that really influenced you to be this incredible go-getter that you are?
That's a great question. I had a great upbringing. My parents got divorced when I was 12. My father was always still involved.
Gotcha.
I have incredible parents. I had the kind of parents who weren't forceful. They were like, learn from your failures, learn from your mistakes, study if you want, don't. I got a lot of freedom from them. So I think I was able to define myself on my own, but they were always very supportive, which I love them for. But I will say this, my freshman year in high school, I wrestled for my whole entire life. Wrestling is my sport. I think that's what built me and made me who I am today.
Yeah.
Because you're accountable, you're responsible for everything on that mat. And my freshman year in high school, I was always a small kid. I mean, I was 100 pounds as a freshman. Now the weight class is 103 pounds. Now the kid who was in that weight class in my school was, he had won freshman states. He was legit the year before, very good wrestler. And then the 119 was like he got second place in states. We didn't have a 112 pounder. So they made me go 112. I'm small. My freshman year, I only won my first match. My first match, I pinned the kid in 45 seconds. I thought I was a fucking man. Every single match after that, I lost. And every single match, I would come back hungrier, wanting to learn and fight more. Still get pinned, still get pinned, still get pinned. I got so comfortable with failure my freshman year and into my sophomore year. I think that's what drove me to be the person I am today. And I just have never quit. And I love a challenge. Some people crumble with challenges. Oh, I fail. You're wrestling in front of, 10, 100, whatever, 200 people. And then you're going to school the next day and like, oh, you got pinned in 20 seconds, but I was, I guess, built for that.
Yeah.
And I still am, in this politics is when you find out how strong you really are. Because people really attack you and they really go below the belt and they hit you where it hurts the most. Yeah. So you kind of got to go into it. Like I always say, I remember the movie 8 Mile with Eminem.
Oh yeah, of course.
When he goes into that final rap battle and instead of talking about attacking the person, he attacks himself. He's like, I know what you're going to say about me. Yeah. Oh yeah, you guys are all going to call me a juice head. Oh, you're all going to say that you punched me. I got punched in the head too many times. I have CTE. Oh, I'm a minority and I'm a white supremacist like Larry Elder. I already know everything that they're going to attack me with. Yeah. So I'm ready for it, but I don't think they're ready for what I'm going to attack them with.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. And I think for the broader audience, like that's a good tactic to take advantage of, and whether it's in business or any area of life, is like, how would I attack me, right?
Yes.
How would I destroy myself? Okay, X, Y, and Z. Let me go ahead and put it out there that, look, I know you guys are going to say this about me, but so I'm going to go ahead and say it myself. And now what? Like, what are we going to actually discuss? The issues.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Most people are afraid to show vulnerability.
Yes.
And I think showing your vulnerability is one of the strongest attributes a person can have.
100%.
Especially as an alpha male, to show that part of you.
Yeah.
I think is very is needed.
Well, there's a lot of conversation around that alpha male term in general, and whatever you want to call it. I think that you're not truly at that point or in that role in life until you can be vulnerable with A, yourself, and B, especially your significant other, your wife, your loved one that you're sharing your life with. Like, dude, I'll break down and cry to my wife. I've been with her for 16 years, and like truly achieving that level of vulnerability is so important as a man, because the rest of our lives we're these hard exterior, bottle it all up, keep your head down, keep pushing forward, especially, a guy like you who's kicked ass in so many different areas of life. That vulnerability, man, is very important. And then if you can turn that outward and say, hey, thousands of people, guess what? I know you think this about me. So what? And let's talk business and get down to it instead. I think that's extremely powerful. You disarm them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I mean, Dems are dirty.
They're so dirty.
With the way they attack you, because the way they attack you is very emotional and feelings based. So it's very hard to argue it back.
That's how they make all their decisions. So of course that's how they're going to attack you.
You're racist. And now I have to try to explain how I'm not racist.
Right.
And that just makes me sound like I'm racist.
Yep. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a very difficult thing to fight. They mastered that narrative. So you really have to be strong enough to just not even argue it back. Just walk away from it and let your actions speak louder than words. Because I will say this, we are allowing the 10% of the right and the 10% of the left who've barked the loudest, now the loudest voices because they're very activist and delusional, dictate the future of this country. While 80% of us that sit in the middle as rational humans, and we teeter left and right depending on the issue, it's like we have no voice. And we're allowing these people to literally ruin and destroy this country. Like, for example, you could be pro Second Amendment and you could be pro-choice. You could be a Democrat and be pro-life. Like, you can be on both sides of the fence depending on the issue.
Yep, absolutely.
But we have people like on the far left that like, no, you got to be here. Everything else is bad. And that doesn't make any sense. And those people are all delusional and irrational.
Yeah. Well, I think that
we're all meant to trigger everybody.
Yeah. The far left, especially, man, they eat their own so much. Like it's literally like every week you're hearing about some figure that was on the left, whether it's like a social or political commentary person or whatever, and now all of a sudden they're getting canceled because they used the wrong pronoun or whatever it is. Yep. It's like anytime it's like that, man, you're going to eat yourself alive. And I think that's what we're seeing. Like, dude, Virginia is a perfect example. The governor in Virginia, going red. People are waking up.
Yeah. You know what it is? I don't want to say these people. It already sounds bad when I say it like that, but
these people,
they never had a voice in the first place. They've always felt like they were outcasts. And now all of a sudden they have a platform because the Democrats feed into them for the votes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying now we're so inclusive of everyone, even though there's such a big portion of those people who are delusional and they're irrational and you can't even talk to them.
Yep.
They're the ones who are driving in their car by themselves with a mask on. And then they all think, hey, listen, everyone who's Republican, you're all a Trump supporter, you're all racist, like you're all a bunch of Proud Boys. I don't understand how people think that's normal.
Yeah, it's
normal rhetoric.
It's not normal. Unfortunately, the problem is, like you said, the loudest people are the ones on the tail on each side. And the right's just as guilty, man. I mean, there's like you said earlier in the conversation, I think Trump is a narcissist. He's not like someone I'd hang out with, and you know what I mean? I'm sure I could learn a lot from him, but like he's just, I have my qualms with Donald Trump as far as him as a person goes. But, and the big but is, I don't care if my heart surgeon is an asshole if he's the best at fixing my heart, right? Like
Yeah,
Donald Trump,
exactly.
you don't have to love him. He's putting policies in place that are making the nation better. But now what we've done instead is switched it and said, hey, I don't care if you know how to work on a heart, as long as you're somebody I like, come on in here and cut me open. And now we're stuck with Joe Biden, you know?
Exactly.
It's rough, brother.
I've been,
So,
I've been
okay.
like
Oh, go
I've been
ahead.
like following this like new moniker. I forgot where I saw it. And this is what I think speaks to everyone. I think the majority of us have a conservative minds
Mm.
and a liberal heart.
Yes. Yeah.
And you, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that, but I always try to make sure a point of mentioning that as someone who is now a conservative. On top of that, we just become more conservative with age.
Yes.
Just about everyone is going to be liberal at a younger age. But like you said, owning a business, you start having kids, you have a family, you own a business, you just start becoming more conservative.
Yeah.
Your
Absolutely.
values just change with age, and that's just normal.
It's normal. And there's an expression, I always botch it, but it's something like if you're not a liberal when you're young, you have no heart. If you're not a conservative when you're old, you have no brain, something like that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense too. Same
Yeah,
shit.
and it's so true, brother. But it's like you mentioned kids, and especially having kids is so, it's such a switch. If you're not already more conservative leaning, I have a daughter. She'll be 5 in a few weeks, and man, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about the nation she's going to have to grow up in. You know,
Yeah,
and
truth.
especially with a lot of the postmodern critical theories like CRT and stuff. And like my daughter's a, little brown girl. I don't want a teacher telling her, because of the color of your skin, you are a victim in this country naturally, and white people are oppressors and all this bullshit that they say. It's like, you're going to send her home thinking her daddy's evil because of the color of my skin? Like,
Also true.
I'm so worried about that stuff, man. And I'm so happy to see. So there's a bunch of you guys, and it's beautiful. There's you. Ian Smith is running for Congress out of New Jersey.
Yep.
And there's a lady in North Carolina, Adina Safta, I think is her last name. She's running for Congress. She's all of you guys have like business minded backgrounds, and you don't have political backgrounds, and that's what we need. I think we need people who are real people, who know how to work hard, who have experience running a business, or at least working with others to accomplish goals like that. And man, I'm just so grateful to see guys like you getting after it and stepping up to the plate, because I know that you're going to be in the crosshairs, and I know that it's not going to be fun. As far as that goes, have you noticed much in terms of like the left trying to attack you yet, or any of that stuff?
Not so much yet. I know it's coming.
Yeah,
Like I said, where I am, they now outnumber us. Democrats outnumber Republicans 10-1.
that's
It's a
insane.
very democratic city. Obviously, this guy has been in office since 1993. And, one of the things that is another driving factor for me. So I live in New Haven. Now, New Haven obviously is a major city. Now, across the bridge, I live in the Cove, which is part of New Haven. I don't think it should be, because on the other side of the bridge. But here it's a little more, I feel like it's more conservative. It's a community. It's a nice neighborhood. The school, Nathan Hale, it's literally pre-K to 8th grade in one school. So you have a community feel for 9 years. It's incredible.
Yeah,
The problem is, when my son goes into high school, you have to make a choice. Do I send my kid to private school, or do I have to move out of the town, which a lot of people out of the city, into another suburban place that has a good school system? Because I'm not sending my kid to Wilbur Cross, which is horrible, where they have no resources, where test scores continue to decrease every single year. And that's a problem. This is under Democratic leadership, not Republican leadership. So in the fact that the inner city keeps on voting these people in when they actually don't do anything to help, that's crazy.
yeah.
So what happened is they're just going to call everyone racist, so everyone votes for them again, and that's it, done.
What do you think?
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think you'd agree that you live in a pretty affluent community, right? And you always hear of those cities and towns in Connecticut as just generally. I live down in the South, so I don't know much about Connecticut, but I
Yeah.
would assume it's a fairly affluent area. Why do you think it is so extreme Democrat when it's an area that's so affluent, and clearly these folks have had to utilize capitalism to a large extent to get where they are in life? Why the hell are they voting Democrat?
How about how about the fact that, how is it this? Yale, for example. So Yale literally owns our city, like literally owns it. They own so much property, and obviously with the school itself, the healthcare, they have a Yale healthcare system. So they're a massive entity. Capitalism at the highest level. Every parent probably of a kid that goes to Yale is a capitalist.
Of course.
How is it that we're a liberal city when the majority of the people making decisions are capitalists? I will never for the life of me understand that. And I still don't understand that.
Yeah, that's always been something that that has confused me. So I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area for a couple of years for grad school, and I understood it there because Silicon Valley tech people, it made a little more sense that they were more left leaning just because that's how tech people are. But these more like old money kind of areas where it's like, they were built on the backs of American industry and capitalism. Yeah. I don't understand why they're leaning left, or in your case, 10-1 Democrat. That's crazy, man.
And I'll tell you what, I just moved back here into Connecticut 2 years ago. I literally moved right before COVID happens. Just out of luck of the draw. I lived in California for the last 10 years. Wow. Now, I love California, Southern California, for how open-minded people are. Mm-hmm. Incredible place. Now, when I came back here, I always looked at Connecticut as this very conservative place, because New England is just conservative. It's all about family values. Things don't really change. Things don't evolve. But to come back here and to find out that we are deep blue, I still don't understand it, because most people I speak to, especially my friends, they're all Republican.
Right.
None of them are Democrat. But because it's a smaller state and we have 4 areas, Hartford, Waterbury, New Haven, and Bridgeport, that are all blue, those hubs dictate the entire state, which is mind blowing to me, because New England itself is conservative mindset, hands down.
Yeah, it's interesting, dude. Have you guys had a lot of pushback from parents on the school system with masking and everything? What's the situation there with that? Because I know Virginia's been crazy.
I'll tell you what, man. So our governor Lamont, he ended all mask mandates on the last day of February. So Monday became optional. 85 I've read 2 different numbers. It was 85 or 90% of schools ended mask mandates and made them optional. A very small percentage kept them in. Obviously, New Haven being so blue and Democratic, they kept theirs in place. So we have a lot of parents that are really pissed off, because if everyone else is not wearing them, how is it that our kids have to wear it? And the worst part about this, which is the most irrational part that I don't understand, the mayor of our city is ending all mask mandates in the city, I think March 8th. So all gyms, stores, restaurants, all public areas, but they're leaving it in schools. So how does that make any sense? So all these kids can be around all their parents and everyone else outside of the school maskless, and all those people around other people maskless, but they have to come to school with a mask. So I think me and you both see things different. We're starting to see things as the further left you go, the more government control there is, the more compliance they want. And I start thinking about, well, if I'm a teacher, is it easier to keep kids in line when they have masks on or without? Obviously, kids are going to be quieter, less disruptive with a mask on, I assume. So maybe that's why they want masks, because there's no science behind it anymore. I'm on the Zoom call, which I did a post about, watching the Board of Ed on Monday, and they're talking about all the science and this and that. Half of the members on the Zoom, the Board of Ed members, were wearing a mask on camera the entire time by themselves at a desk at their house. Like, what does that tell you? And then the other half of the people on the Zoom are overweight, talking about health. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now?
It's absurd, dude. And so the reason I ask you that is I was just kind of thinking, I wonder if for you guys, as deep blue as you are, if there's going to be a little bit of a tide change because of all of these absurdities. Do you think that there are, I guess, one, are there more candidates like you running for the other seats and everything like that? And do you think they have a shot?
There definitely are others running for seats. There will definitely be a bigger swing this year.
Cool.
I mean, I know. So, for example, with the last mayoral election, it was 10-1. I know more people come out for the Senate for that election. I know the last one, which was 2 years ago, obviously, Looney had like 30 something thousand votes, and the other candidate had like 9,000.
Okay.
So it is going to be a big swing, but if anyone's going to do it, this is the year to do it.
Yeah, I agree.
Because there's a lot of people that are just upset. They're like, we need change. We need something different.
Yeah.
And there is not a single person on this planet that does not agree on term limits. The only people that don't agree with term limits are people that are already in office.
Yep.
That's it. Because they want to hold their spot. I get it. But no rational human is okay with it. So if it was a Republican in office for 16 terms, every Democrat would be crying term limits. So tell me why you're not crying term limits for Martin Looney, who hasn't done anything for your city at all.
Yeah. Rules for thee, not for me, man. It's always that way. It's always that way.
That's it.
So,
and again, like I feel like I'm that new age, like you, where I sit on both sides of the fence.
mm-hmm.
I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to call out some of my own people, and I'm going to call out everyone on the left. The problem is the Democrats don't call each other out. They all fall in line. Even if they don't agree with a policy, they still vote blue anyway.
That's why,
just because they want to keep that blue thing alive.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say is I agree with calling out both sides, but when you look at the politics, that's why a lot of times you will see these blue strangleholds on certain areas, because Republicans will call each other out. And a lot of times it's to their detriment. There will be so much infighting that meanwhile, the Dems are all supporting one another, which you see a little less of now, honestly, because I think there's such a large progressive wing of the Democrat Party now, like the Squad and all these psychos, that your more moderate Dems are kind of put off by that. Like, obviously you have Kristen Sinema and Manchin, as far as federal level goes, that are willing to vote against some of this crap. But I think it's unfortunate, because if you could say, yes, both sides are going to play by these same rules, and then I think you can achieve some balance. But as long as you have one side that plays more dirty than the other, right? Yeah. As long as you have blue no matter who, then it's going to be tough, because Republicans are more they're more value based, and they're more constitutionalists, and so they're going to say, hey, this candidate, he doesn't hold this value based on the Constitution or whatever, so I'm going to call him out. And meanwhile, the Dems are like, yeah, I don't agree with that person, but publicly I'm going to support them because it's for my party, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I agree, man. More people who are just, I think you're seeing this with the media, which has been beautiful to see. And I'm a little biased because I'm a podcast guy, but the decentralization of media, right? So losing the stranglehold that like CNN has on the news, and even Fox News has on the news, and MSNBC, and now Joe Rogan outpacing all of them, getting 11 million views, and all these independent news sources getting the same amount of viewership as CNN, for example. That's a beautiful thing. And that is driving a lot of this towards people having sort of values on both sides of the aisle, because they're actually starting to think for themselves a little more, instead of saying, CNN is the news says this is what I do, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And they make us so hard. You know,
Yeah.
it's like Rogan can say whatever out of context, but then someone else on the left can say the same exact thing
Yep.
10 times worse, and they won't even do it. They won't even call him out.
Yeah. Well, how about the president can say the N word, and they're like, "Oh, it all depends on context." But then Joe Rogan says it quoting someone, and they're like, "It doesn't matter. You don't get to say that word no matter what." It's like, all right, guys, what are the rules here?
Listen to listen. I don't listen to an entire Rogan podcast or too long, but he'll have 2 hours. In those 2 hours, if you listen to the whole thing, you will see that he is extremely middle.
Mm-hmm.
He lets whoever he's speaking to speak their mind and give their opinion. He agrees most of the time too. But then the media just spins it, takes that one little clip, spins it into something crazy and makes him look bad, which I'll never understand.
Yeah.
You know, and again, these Dems don't eat their own. I don't know if I said this before, like, you know, they'll call Trump a misogynist and they'll call Trump racist and all these things. But the same voters in New York won't call out Andrew Cuomo for rape. The same people in California celebrities that were employed by Harvey Weinstein won't call him out. The same politicians who are funded millions of dollars by Jeffrey Epstein, who's a huge Democrat supporter, they won't call him out. You know, and these are all legit criminals and rapists.
Yeah,
but they'll call out Trump for like fucking nothing.
Exactly, or even something that they've made up just so they can have something to call him out on. When I first started going down this journey, man, and I know we've been going at it for a little while, so we'll wrap here pretty soon.
I'm in no rush.
Okay, perfect.
Good.
Just tell me, man, because I'll go forever.
Yeah.
When I started down kind of like my red pill journey, which has been a few years in the making, I remember very early on someone said to me, Democrats will accuse Republicans specifically of the things that they're doing because it's projection, right? And I was like, that seems a little extreme. That's probably not true. But damn if it hasn't turned out to be like almost completely true with everything, man.
Yeah.
You know, like the Me Too stuff, it's like, who's actually getting caught doing all this stuff? People on the left, you know, it's like, no, it's insane. And the racism stuff.
I mean, people like, I'll comment on something and people go back to my social media to see who I am, to see I'm a Republican. Then they'll go back to their, whatever the comment was, and they'll say, oh, Trump this, Trump that. I'm like, I never endorsed Trump anywhere on my page.
Right.
So why are you making this assumption I'm MAGA?
Exactly.
You know, and this is how delusional these people are. And I don't know why it's like that. I think that they spend too much time arguing with people that are on that side of the fence.
Mm-hmm.
And they're triggered so much that they put everyone in that same box, when in actuality, you can't judge 70 million people the same exact way.
Right.
That's like me saying every single Democrat is a Cuomo supporter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, look, the right's guilty of it too, though, man. Just to be completely honest, I'll look at comments on stuff and libtard this, libtard that. All you libtards you all believe this. And so I think it's kind of human nature, but I truly think the answer to it, my man, is like these conversations. And that's why people love Rogan, because like you said, he talks to anybody and he talks about everything and he puts it all out there. And that authenticity is going to save us.
Absolutely.
You know, it truly will. And when you see, it's a huge red flag to me when I will see a politician, for example, who isn't willing to sit down and have a long form conversation with someone who doesn't share their same opinions. You know, that's a huge deal. Like, I have tried really hard to get left-leaning people on this show. They will not do it, man. They won't agree to it. I haven't had any luck yet. You know, like people who are pro mandates and stuff. I've been like, hey, come on my show. Let's debate it. You know, I'd love to debate that with you. And won't do it. It's a shame.
You have to remember, there's always two sides of the fence. Sometimes people can agree. For example, let me think of something. Let's talk about the police real quick.
Oh yeah.
How can you have, let's just say you have two people arguing. One is a woman whose husband was a police officer. He pulled someone over for a routine traffic stop, and it was an African-American male. African-American male had a warrant for his arrest, didn't want to get arrested. He pulled out a gun and shot the officer and ran off, which has happened a number of times.
Oh yeah.
That woman is arguing with another mother whose son was pulled over in a routine traffic stop. The officer said, hey, license and registration. He reached for the glove compartment. The officer, for some reason, felt threatened, pulled out his gun and killed an innocent man. Now, how do those two people argue with each other? Because they are both fucking right in their argument of why I'm pro-police and why I'm anti-police. And, you know, there was one moment in history that I like to talk about. I haven't really talked about it in public, so I'll talk about it right now with you.
Let's go.
That we could have came together, right? And there's going to be people that are going to be upset with me saying this. We could have came together as a nation. Colin Kaepernick, okay? Now, let me preface this with, I would never kneel for the flag because the flag to me represents opportunity. I love my country. The opportunities that it has afforded me, I feel blessed. So I would never kneel for a flag. I also feel that people have fought and died for this country overseas are veterans, and you're kind of disrespecting them. But that's my opinion. Now, us as conservatives, we fight tooth and nail for freedom of speech. Colin Kaepernick used his freedom of speech and his First Amendment right to kneel for the flag to make a statement. Whether you like it or not, he used that opportunity to kneel, okay? I give that to him. But equal opportunity does not mean equal outcome.
Yes.
So when you do make that decision to do that, your employer could fire you. You might lose your job. So people on the right should have said, oh yeah, it's okay. He should be able to use his freedom of speech. That's fine. And then when he got fired, the people on the left could have said, oh, well, guess what? If you protest, you might lose your job. But we all could have came together that time. Even Trump could have went on national TV and said, hey, he's exercising his freedom of speech.
Right.
And we would have been okay because, again, some people are like me saying this, but if Peyton Manning had kneeled for the flag for veterans' rights, I guarantee you the entire country would have been okay with it. But because not everyone can relate to social issues like racism or social injustices, you have a huge portion of our country that were offended by it. And that's also a problem. And again, I'm going on a rant, but I think that's a perfect example of some of the problems we have in our country and how we need to come together. And that's where conservatives fail. They fail at social issues. They're too worried about fucking the Constitution legislation, which I am a proponent of, that they fail that half of our country cares about social issues just as much as legislative issues.
Yeah.
And until those conservatives can kind of understand that we need to also care about the social issues as well, we're going to die. We are literally going to die over time.
Let me ask you this, Steve. Do you think that had Peyton Manning kneeled during the anthem for veterans' rights, say to honor fallen soldiers or to bring awareness to the needs of veterans, do you think that Democrats would have been mad about that? Do you think it would have been reversed, like Democrats would have been pissed that he was kneeling during the anthem or not?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I don't know either. Yeah, but I don't know, because I think that maybe Democrats are a little less like patriotic in that regard, so they may have been supportive. But it's a interesting thing to think about, and I agree with you. I mean, I think that of course you have the freedom of speech, but like you said, you're not free of the consequences of those speech. And the NFL, if they decide, hey, we don't want you doing this, and it's a private business, they can let you go. I mean, I was working in a consulting gig just up until recently, and I got let go for my public my public presence. Essentially, they said our objectives don't align, and I knew what that meant, Yes. But it's fine. I was prepared for that to happen. My wife and I had that conversation previously, and we sort of looked at it as it's probably a matter of time, because the organization had expressed a lot of rainbow flag, we support, social cause type stuff, which of course is BS when corporations do that.
It's all money.
It's all money. And then I knew that, okay, if they find out I am who I am publicly, then they're probably not going to want to align with my podcast and all that stuff, which happened. And it's like, I don't fault them for it. That's what happens. It's free speech. I knew what I was up against, and they let me go because of it. And hey, that's cool. All good.
Absolutely.
So
It's truth.
yeah.
People, so that's what one thing I love about conservatives is equal opportunity doesn't equate to equal outcome.
100%.
Whereas the far left, it's like equal opportunity and equal outcome. That's not real life.
Yeah. Well, if you make that assumption, if you say equal opportunity is equal outcomes, then you're also having to make the assumption that there's no human variability. Right.
Exactly.
So we all have different, like, if you put me and LeBron James on a basketball court with the exact same opportunity to play a game, what do you think's going to happen? Not the same outcome, dude. Yeah. I mean, it's just a reality of life. And that's the whole equality versus equity thing. I mean, I think that when you start to try to do things like corrective justice is a term that they'll use. And that's essentially saying, for example, like a disadvantaged group historically, we're now going to say that a certain percent of our people we hire or we permit into this school or the test scores we require are lower, essentially affirmative action. But, they like to change the names of things periodically. That's not equality anymore. That's trying to produce a change in the outcome. And you're not just giving them the same opportunity. You're trying to fabricate an outcome that probably isn't going to exist if people are allowed to just pursue what they're interested in.
Exactly. It's just delusional thinking.
I mean, what better example of that than the freaking fight game, right? Like,
sure.
Everybody gets a training camp. When you step in there, one person wins,
Exactly. And I had that mindset, that martial artist mindset where, like when you're fighting, you're in fight camp, you walk into a room and there's 20 other lions in that room that you're training with every day. All different races, all different ethnicities, all different backgrounds. No one cares about any of that shit.
Yep.
You all go in there with the same purpose to make each other better and beat each other up and prepare for battle. And that's it. And that's how the world should be itself. Everyone, the left and the right, should think the same way.
Yeah, I agree.
We all have the same opportunity to step on that mat. But guess what? Some of y'all are getting fucked up today.
That's right, dude.
But guess what? There's one day where I'm the sheep, and then there's the next day where I'm the lion. Like every day is different.
Yeah, the thing that people on the left, and I don't want to just seem like I'm attacking the left, but with this particular concept, the part they never mention is if in a meritocracy, which ultimately I feel is the best way to do things, you work hard and you're the best, you get rewarded as the best, right? Like we said, no better example than sports or fighting to that extreme. But if you have the opportunity if you go in and you can lose, you also have the flip side of that. You have the opportunity to work really hard and achieve more, right? When you strive for equality of outcome, that opportunity is taken away as well. So you lose the incentive for hard work. Like, you could be the most badass guy on the planet if you put in the work, but when we take away the incentive for you to do that, why would you, right? Why would you work harder? Why would you innovate? Why would you strive for more? So
there's no point striving for greatness.
Exactly.
Literally zero. And I know I used, just because he's in the back of my head when I made that the Eminem 8 Mile reference.
Uh-huh.
I love using Eminem as a reference because Eminem is the antithesis of everything, right? He was white, hip hop world, beat up for the color of his skin, but he didn't let that stop him from becoming one of the greatest of all time in a black cultural dominant worlds.
Exactly.
So just because you're black doesn't mean you can't get into the white world and dominate. You just can't have that victim mentality. And Democrats, I swear to you, they just feed this black inferiority narrative. And that's what I'm not okay with. And then if I talk about that, now I'm racist.
Yeah. Well, it's this soft bigotry of low expectations, I think, is the phrase they use for it, right? It's like just assuming that the best example I've seen of it is, the whole argument about voter ID being racist. that whole bullshit thing.
That's just as bad as Jim Crow laws. That's what they
Yeah,
call it.
yeah, exactly. Like, give me a break. But there's a video, and I've shown it on my channel before, but basically, I think it was, God, I can't remember his name. He does great, like, man on the street stuff where he goes and interviews people. He went to Berkeley, UC Berkeley, which the only reason I remember that is because that's where I went to grad school, and I was just shaking my head watching these kids.
Oh, okay. All right. I see
But
you.
yeah, dude, I went to a super liberal university.
Oh my God. Big
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. But he's walking the campus and he's asking students, all white students, by the way, if they think voter ID is racist. And then of course, they say yes. And then he says why. And the answers are the most disgusting part, dude. It's literally like, oh, black people don't know how to use the internet to get an ID. Black people typically just don't have IDs because they don't know how to get IDs, and all sorts of variations of that. And it's like, what is more racist than that? What is more racist than that mindset, thinking that black people are inferior and that just requiring an ID to vote is racist because they somehow don't have IDs?
Yeah, it's crazy. But when I I just moved out to Connecticut and I had to change over my license from California to Connecticut. And I walk into the DMV and there are signs everywhere for voter ID and voter stuff and information. If you can get to the DMV in your town, there's no reason to not be able to get to a voting booth or get a voter ID. It makes zero sense.
It makes zero
sense. But they
sense.
manipulate and brainwash you into thinking that.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's the wildest one to me. But there's so many examples of that where it's like we said earlier, they're constantly accusing the other side of racism while at the same time they look at people of color and different minority groups or whatever, however you want to call it, they look at them as just monoliths, just voting blocks, just opportunities to stay in office. They don't really care. It's why Biden played Despacito at that Latin American convention, like it was going to get him some cred with them. He walks up and freaking plays Despacito, and it's like, dude, what are you doing? You know what
the most that they've done in the last year is they gave us a holiday, Juneteenth.
That's right.
So they gaslight us with things like that as if that makes any difference or any change. How about you take $1 billion and put it into the inner city school system? Right. So kids have resources to have a good education.
Yeah.
But instead you rather spend $1 billion on COVID committees and giving jobs to your friends.
Crack pipes.
That is bullshit.
Crack pipes, dude. Got to get clean crack pipes.
Like, really? So, I mean, but Democrats, they want the welfare. The further left you go, the more that's where the welfare state is. They want to keep people down. Mm-hmm. It's the way it is, it's control. The further right you go, the more freedom there is. I don't understand why anyone would vote against that.
Well, for a lot of people, man, freedom is scary, honestly, because what does freedom mean? Truly, it means responsibility. You have a lot of responsibility. Now it's not daddy government's fault, right? Now it's my fault. It's all up to me. If I don't win, it's my fault. People don't like to face that reality.
No.
Dude, you mentioned the welfare state. I gotta just mention this. So I told you about my parents, not a great upbringing. My mom was on welfare the whole time. And a lot of this probably helped contribute to why I feel the way I do. But I watched her and all her friends get their food stamps whenever it came in. This was back in the day when it was literally food stamps. Like they didn't have the card or anything. It was like pieces of paper. They would get them. Yeah. Then they'd go directly to whoever the plug was or whatever, sell them their food stamps for 50 cents on the dollar so they could get cash money, and then take that cash money to go get drugs. That's what they did with their food stamps. And it wasn't just my mom. It was the neighborhood thing. It was like what they did. And I have heard myself conversations between people in that neighborhood growing up, like literally like excited that they're having another kid because that means a bigger check, that. This is not a system where there's incentive to get off of it. It's a system where there's incentive to stay on it and to not strive to achieve. And it goes right back to that equality of outcome thing. If you're producing already for this group of people an outcome when they have to do no work or better themselves, what do you think they're going to do? Right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I lived, man.
That's insane. Yeah. Well, again, there's a huge part of the population that they rather live that lifestyle.
Yeah. And by the way, for
The other
people listening, there's more white people on welfare than black people. So this isn't like a race thing at all. This is just a class issue, period.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
Absolutely true. And again, and at the end of the day, when you talk about that, we're at a point where it's really the elites versus the non-elite.
100%.
It's not really Republican versus Democrat. I mean, the people at the very top, a lot of them are just birds of the same fucking feather.
Yep.
And you have no idea what they're doing behind closed doors to manipulate us. You have a lot of people that are Republicans in office that are really Democrats behind closed doors, and vice versa. America is the holy grail of the world. You can't tell me you don't have people on the inside trying to destroy it and take it over.
Of course.
And that goes at every level of society. The whole mole scenario.
Yeah. No, I agree fully. And that's why one of my favorite signs I've ever done was they want us to hate each other. Don't let them win. Because that's truly how I feel about government elites as well as institutions like the media, because they're all hand in hand. Their best case scenario is if a guy who looks like me hates a guy who looks like you, and you hate me, and we're fighting each other instead of worrying about what they're doing behind closed doors. What they don't want is us getting along.
Divide and conquer.
Exactly. That's what they don't want, is us getting along. And then together we turn around and say, hey, what the fuck are y'all doing over there? That's what they don't want. And that's what's happening. Thank God, finally.
I agree.
Absolutely, man.
I guess one of the last things I'll say is one thing about Trump, and then people on the left will probably like me saying this, because of his personality, because he was so triggering and kind of no fucks, everyone on the right who really are the closet assholes also came out from under the rug.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it triggered everybody on the left. Whereas I feel like for decades, everything's been swept under the rug. People kind of hide in the closet. They don't say their feelings for real. But when Trump came in office, everything came out because Trump was such a polarizing, no fucks, say whatever I want to say attitude. It made everyone else do the same thing. And then you start realizing how divided we really are as a country.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I agree,
he was the voice and kind of the catalyst to make all this happen. And for that, like all the closet racism that came out, all the closet this, all the closet that, I'm happy that it came out. I'm happy actually where we are. I'm happy that we're taking 2 steps back to hopefully take 3 steps forward, because people are opening their eyes. Dude, our government has been running under the radar for so long. It's crazy. And no, people still don't want to believe that. I know people on the right understand that the government doesn't have their best interest at hand. People on the left still want to believe the government does, because government control is on the left-hand side.
Exactly. Yeah. You're so right, man. And I agree with you fully on that point. I think it's better to rip the Band-Aid off, expose all the ugly, right? Just get it out there. Have the difficult conversation. It's all, even in personal life. It's way better. If there's something between my wife and I, it's way better for us to just sit down and talk right now, get all the emotion, whatever's going on, just put it all out there. Then we can examine it for what it is, because we can see it now, and then we can move forward. And I think that's a great point. I don't think I've ever heard anybody put it just like you just did. And I think that's a great way to put it, because I've heard it said before that not every Trump supporter is a white supremacist, of course, which I agree with, but every white supremacist is a Trump supporter, which is very much true. And it revealed a lot of that. And I think one of the, I guess, silver linings in that is seeing that no matter what the actual mainstream media wants us to believe, the amount of that true, like, hatred, that true racism, not the version of Ibram X. Kendi racism where everything's a microaggression and everybody's racist, but like the real stuff, right? There's not as much of that as they would want you to believe, man. When you go out in every day, like, we really just all get along and love each other and want to, like, go to our job, support our family, put our kids into school, pay less taxes, have a nice neighborhood, like, this is what we want.
Exactly.
And I think we all see that now too, man.
Truth.
Yeah.
Absolute truth.
So before we wrap this sucker up, is there anything else you want to add about your campaign? If anybody wants to support you or anything like that, my friend?
Yeah. So my campaign on IG is my last name, Orosco 20. No, I'm sorry, Orozco.Senate. And then, my personal IG, Steve Orozco. Those are my two main platforms. I have
Perfect.
Facebook. I just started Twitter as well.
Oh,
It's
good luck.
Orozco 2022.
Twitter is a garbage fire, bro. It is
I know it
absolutely
is.
rough out there.
I had a few people hit me up saying, hey, listen, you should get on there because it's so politically heavy.
It is. Yeah.
So I started, man, like every time I post something, everyone's just retweeting it in my state. So I'm using it for the local politics aspect.
Well, that's
good.
it. Yeah.
Because I don't like Twitter either.
Yeah. I'll put Steve's personal and political Instagrams in the comments and the show notes, and I'll put your Twitter handle. You guys, you got to support candidates like this. If you're not going to personally speak up yourself, if you're not going to run for office yourself, then the best next thing you can do is support people like Steve. I think if nothing else, this last 2 years has shown us how important local government is. So you guys get out and freaking vote, and vote with your brain, not your heart. You can put a little heart in there, but let's be smart about things. Look at how it's gone the last couple of years and really think about these candidates you all. Steve Orozco, my man, thank you so much for joining me. Everybody out there, until next time, keep your minds free. Boom.